Okay, if you came here from the Ghostbusters Frozen Empire review, I said that I was going to do a spoiler review because while I did enjoy the movie and I would give it a great, I'd give it great, um, I definitely thought that there were some parts in here that I'm like, okay, I got to talk about this, and would bring out spoilers. So do not watch this if you, or do not listen to this if you have not seen Ghostbusters Frozen Empire. And I know I say that because I know there's always going to be someone hanging on that for some reason they're hanging on because they want to, and then they're just going to get all mad. So if you have not seen Frozen Empire, go watch it. Or if you haven't seen my non-spoiler review, go watch that. So I'm giving you a warning right now. So do not. All right? Okay, here we go. Now, I did enjoy the movie. Give it a great. I did enjoy it. But the issues that I have, I can't talk about without spoiling. And here they are. So I actually have a list here of the stuff that I did not like. So I did like it, but here's some of the things I did not like. I'll start with this. With the OG Ghostbusters, yes, Ray and Winston definitely get more screen time. And Janine does as well. Because if you remember back in Afterlife, Ray only had two scenes. Winston only had one. Or no, if you count the post-credit scene, there was two. Janine only had one, if you don't count the post-credit scene. But especially Bill Murray had one. Now, this movie brings them all back, which is great. Janine has more screen time. Ray has more screen time. Winston has more screen time. Peter does not. He only has two scenes. And it's like, really? Like, you could have, like, thrown him there to, like, offer, like, some assistance or, like, throw out some funny lines because that's very much the character of Peter. But, like, okay. Like, I can get past that. Now, pacing. Now, from what we saw in the trailers, everything that involved the Frozen part, like New York getting frozen, that all happens in the third act. And it was like, okay, so you set up all this stuff, and then the third act, that's when New York is engulfed in to be frozen. And it's like, this came way late. Like, we should have got this like halfway through the film. At least halfway. And the fact that the movie is almost 2 hours long, like I said, it doesn't, like, it's like the last, like, 30, 40 minutes of the film. That's when, the Frozen, more or less 30, that's when the Frozen thing hits. So it's like, really? I don't think this should have been called Frozen Empire at all. Like, it should have been called something else. But, yeah, that kind of bugged me, but I was like, okay, I can probably get past that. So yeah, the list that I have here, pacing. And I put the first and second act seemed somewhat drawn out, and the finale, including the deep freeze, was brief, really brief, almost to the point that it didn't even warrant the Frozen Empire title. It would have been cool if they were like trying to like discover stuff like as they're driving around like on ice, because if you try driving on ice, it is near damn impossible. So then some more stakes could have been happening. Now, I talked about what happened with like New York City, like over the past like 40 years in the series, and like how like they just like lose their memory. Like everybody just loses their memory when something happens. So it's just like oh, we don't believe in it. Oh my God, like Stay Puft Marshmallow is showing up. Yay, we saved the day 5 years later. What happened? Like nothing happened. You guys are just frauds. it's the same cycle. And then at the end of the film, they're then like, oh, let's bring them back. Oh, they saved the day. Yay, let's cheer for them. It's the same thing. So it's like, okay, can we just get past this? Like, please. Like, all this stuff happened. Look back at stuff, and then, do your research, and then you're fine. I also think it would have been cool, like, for them to do, like, what the first two movies did, where in the middle of all the stuff happening, the main stuff happening, they were doing all these, like, little side things. And so, because then it would have branched out, like, oh, no, they're not just they're not just focusing on the big thing. They're focusing on everything. And so it then brought out a wider scope. So to me personally, I would have liked to see that. Now, the biggest issue that I had was Phoebe and the firebender. I'll talk about the firebender in a little bit. But Phoebe, in Afterlife, she was very much portrayed as like a little Egon, like very smart, eccentric, and knows her stuff, but is also curious at the same time, which, is typical. So that was the way it was pitched, and that was the way they were showing it. With this, it was a complete 180. Now, in the movie, in the very beginning, they find out that, she's underage and that she basically gets benched. But to her getting benched means I'm useless. No, it doesn't. And, there's something at the end where they're just like, hey, if we, like, do this to the proton pack, we could get a bigger advantage. I'm like, you couldn't have done that, like, as you were getting benched? Like, really? Like, just because you can't, shoot a proton pack does not mean you're useless. And also, she was, like, extremely gullible. Where, there's the main thing is, like, she befriends a ghost who ends up working with the big bad. And I'm just like, okay, one, I've seen that plot point happen so many times before that I can basically say, oh, when they introduce like this aspect, it's like I know what's going to happen. And this was the same thing. So I was like, okay, all right, whatever. But she was just like completely gullible. And I was just like, this is not you. This is not the character that I saw in Afterlife. Now I get it. You have to expand the characters. I get it, because it not only takes place 2 years after the events of Afterlife, but that's just how every human being works, is we all progress. We all like change. I get it. But it's just like, just completely different. Like, really, her science brain didn't kick in until the third act. And it's like, why didn't you do this, like, as the movie was going on, like you did with Afterlife? And it was just odd, and I didn't really like that. Now, the firebender. Okay, I gotta talk about this. As much as I like Kumail Nanjiani, I did not like how his character turned from, him starting out from like I have a whole collection of stuff. You give me the right price, it's yours. They establish him like that to all of a sudden they then bring in an aspect of Avatar: The Last Airbender where he becomes a firebender. And I'm like, whoa. When did this turn into Last Airbender? Like, what is going on? And I didn't really like that. And like, I personally think if Phoebe's character was not the way she was in this, and actually was like helping as like during the time when she was benched, and saying like, hey, we could do this, and this with the proton packs, that can help us out. Instead of that happening in the third act, she could have been doing that in like a little bit after the first act, or maybe in the second act, that's when they realize it, and she's been working on that the whole time, to then, at the end of the movie, it's not just one proton pack, it's all of them. So it's like, that would have been, or most of them. I was like, that would have been cool. That would have been, you would have had a higher advantage, and you could have tried to defeat, was it Garaka, that way, without Nanjiani's help. And another thing too is that, yeah, in the trailer you see like, yeah, Kumail Nanjiani's in it and Patton Oswalt is in it. Patton Oswalt is barely in the movie. He's in it for like 2 scenes and then he's gone. And I'm like, okay, I understand like you're supposed to be there to like help them out, but you're really just here for God, the word, I always blank on it. Uh, telling the story. And it's like, okay, you're just here for exposition. I keep getting it wrong with expedition. And it's like, no, that's not the right word. Expedition. And it's just like, okay, you're just here to just say, hey, I'm here to say some words, say some history, and then I'm gone. And I was like, maybe you could have had a bigger role, maybe. Or, just, whatever. And yeah, there was things in here that I was like, okay, that's a little flaw. And I have seen other people say like, oh, they thought that Slimer being in here, you briefly see the librarian again. They thought that was useless. And it's like, no, actually, if you really think about it, it's not. Because one, the librarian, they don't catch. In the first movie, they get scared and they run off. They never come back. Now, if you play the Ghostbusters video game they did, you do go back. But I don't think they count that as canon here. I don't believe they do. So they never captured the librarian, so she's still there. So it makes sense for that. And with Slimer, it made sense because, yes, they caught him in the first movie, but because Peck, being the dickless that he is, released all the ghosts again, that included Slimer, they never went back and got him. That's why, like, at the end of the first movie, he, like, charges right at the screen, or in 2, he's just there. He's hanging out around the firehouse. So it made sense for that. And they even make it part of the plot where he kind of helps them out. Slimer doesn't realize that he helped them out because he's, Slimer. But it made sense. So I've seen a lot of people talk badly about that. To me, it made sense for what they were doing. Now, yes, if they just threw it in for no reason, then I would have been like, okay, that's a ding right there. But personally, I didn't. So, still, overall, I enjoyed the film. I put it on the line of like Ghostbusters 2, but I still thoroughly enjoyed the movie. It's just I wanted to get all of the issues that I had off my chest because they were just really bugging me. Where it's like, yeah, this needed to be changed. This probably shouldn't have been there, or like whatever. So that's me. So yeah, but overall, I still enjoy the movie. So, and if you are a Ghostbusters fan, it is definitely made for the fans. It is. And that's what I enjoy for it. But me as a fan, I would also like to see them do some like, not just fan service, but also make some parts like make sense. Like, for example, they actually made a point to say, why we got the firehouse back and not just some random building? Well, they throw it out there and it's like, oh, that actually makes sense. That makes total sense. And yeah, they said like it wasn't for just nostalgia reasons. It was for something else. And it was like, oh, that's really cool. So, I did enjoy the movie. There were some parts in there where I was like, yeah, like previously mentioned, I wish the pacing was better. I wish everybody in New York wasn't just a complete brainless idiot. And especially, like, Phoebe's character should have been completely, like, looked back at. And, if they fix that, then I personally think that Kumail Nanjiani didn't really need to be in the movie. I personally thought that. And so, yeah. And I have heard that they're trying to potentially do another one. And it's like, okay, you guys can finish off this trilogy, but, I don't need every Ghostbusters film to have in some way be a connection to the original and rely on that heavy. So like something like Extreme Ghostbusters, the cartoon, where with that was, it was a sequel to the real Ghostbusters, but it, once the rookies got involved, it was all them. It was all them. It was like, okay, that's cool. And the same thing with the Ghostbusters Sanctum of Slime video game, is that it was a group of rookies. Once they get introduced, and it was the very beginning of the game, it's like, okay, it's their adventures now. So it's like, all right, so you kind of forget that, oh, they're actually connected, but that's what I like. It's like a little connection, but you forget that little connection because it feels like you're watching just a separate story. So it's like, all right, this is cool. Like, so I wish that Ghostbusters in more ways did something like that, or made it kind of like an anthology thing where each film, it's like different characters, it's maybe a different location. Like, that's why I liked Afterlife, because they took it away from New York and made it in Oklahoma. But with this, they brought it back to New York. So it was like, okay, so it's a lot of the familiar stuff that we've seen. Where with Afterlife, it felt very different because it was in a different location. So I would like to see that more. But, overall, I still enjoyed it. I still think, it's a good movie. I did have fun with it. It is very funny. So with all the complaining I still give it a grade. I still enjoyed it. So, and if you're a Ghostbusters fan, you probably like this. So, you have to see it and make up your own mind. But it is, to me, it's a fun movie, and I'll definitely rewatch it in the future.